we go.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you go.
Hey guys,
Good morning.
welcome to Kensington Online. We are so excited that you are here today. Today's an awesome day. We've got one more week until we're back into some fall programming. Today is the launch of our groups. So all of our groups are going to be spread out throughout the lobby. Next week they'll be in the auditorium, and you can check all of those out online and at our Facebook group too. And we got a good teacher in today for our main stage.
Yeah, you get stuck with me today. I'm Ryan. Hi, everybody. And glad you're with us today. Happy Labor Day weekend to you. And so talking about the end of Psalm 23 today, 23:6. And surely goodness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So excited to share kind of what God's showing me through that. Just want to let you know, too, as Ian said, groups are kicking off. We've also got a great event coming up 3 weeks from now for our kids and families at Bear Creek Park. Sunday, is it the 25th or the 26th?
25th.
The 25th.
The 25th, yep.
After our last service, we're going to go have a big old kind of back-to-school barbecue, even though we've been in school for a little while, but have some fun. So we hope you come hang out with us. Check out more information online about that anytime you're at church, or check our Facebook pages out in the kids area. We hope you joined us.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great next hour of your life. And enjoy the service.
Enjoy. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Good morning, Kensington. How you doing? Great. Go ahead and stand with us if you would as we enter into worship this morning. If you know it, sing it with me. I'm coming with a heart of worship. I'm bringing in a brand new song. I'm ready to see the unthinkable. I'm ready for a miracle. My heart's praying for a fresh encounter. Souls looking to the living God. I'm ready for a real revival. Oh, Holy Spirit, come freedom. Come on. Oh, can you feel it? Heaven is reaching. Oh, can you hear it? Our God is speaking. Oh, can you see it? He's got your healing. Oh, just receive it. Receive the freedom. Come like a flood, like a fire. Holy Spirit, fall in this place, fill our hearts. Holy Spirit, come like a flood, like a fire. Holy Spirit, come. Oh, Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. No longer but Christ in me, for I've been born again. My heart is free, the hope of heaven before me, the grave behind. Hallelujah, you brought me back to life. Yeah. I won't forget the moment I heard you call my name out of the grip of darkness into the light of grace, just like Lazarus. Oh, you brought me back to life. Where there was dead religion, now there is living faith. All of my hope and freedom are found in Jesus' name. Just like Lazarus,
enemy thought he had me. No, he did not. Jesus says we are his. Everybody grab a seat. Good morning. It's great to see you here today on this lovely Labor Day weekend, which we kind of think of as the kickoff of fall, right? Not the end of summer. We have more time. Pumpkin spice lattes, college football, all kinds of fun things. My name's Susan. This is Charlotte. Come stand by me. The camera can't get us, the wide angle. Charlotte is here today to tell us a little bit about we officially kick off in the fall, and that is our groups, courses, and care. So Charlotte, tell us what we need to know.
All right, thank you,
All right.
Susan.
Whoop.
Good morning, everybody. You know, seeing you guys here on a holiday weekend and the people who are tuning in online makes me think about all of the things that compete for our time. But I look at the people who are here because you really have a heart to pursue more of God. And I've been doing my devotional, the Psalm 23 devotional that Ryan's going to be teaching on today. I don't know if anybody's been listening or following along with that, but just the last couple days, it talks about King David going through the valley of the shadow of death and how he fears no evil because he knows God's with him. And preceding that, like, why does he have that confidence when he's in the valley? It's because of the time he spent with God. It's about spending time in the green pastures and by still waters. And I think one of the ways that we can spend time with God intentionally is by jumping into a smaller group. Jumping into something that's on our calendar. I don't know about you, but I'll have the best of intentions about how my time's gonna be spent. But if you join a group, you're committed on that time on the calendar to join with other people who are also really wanting to make that time in their life to say, this is my time. I'm carving it out because I want to know more of God. I want that. So I'm going to encourage you. I don't know if the slide's going to go up, but I have a number that you can text, and you just text the word group to this number. It's very easy. So if it's not up there, it is, 248-845-3058. Pull out your phone, type in the word group, and you're going to get a link to our groups page. That's going to tell you all about things like our Alpha course, which we are super excited about, gathering around a table with a meal and talking about real questions about our faith on Monday nights. We also have an online version of that. We're also excited about our Bible Basics course for those who say, I want to get that overview of the Bible, the overarching story, so I can dig into the Bible on my own. Come to our Bible Basics course. We also have a lot of classes that are for care, for hope if you need healing. Because I talked about the valley. Some of you are in the valley right now, and you need the support of other people. And others, the valleys will come, and you might be on a mountain top now, but I really think that if you invest in some kind of a smaller group, we have groups for men or women, we have marriage initiatives, we have marriage groups, couples groups, families groups, singles,
Everything.
like all of these people who are saying, I want to open up time for you to come and grow together. So text that'll send it to my phone. I won't bother you, but it also gives you access to me if you have questions, because what we really want is for this to be easy for you to make this step and this choice. So anything we can do to help you sift through all of the options. We're out in the lobby the next 3 weekends. Come to a table, talk to a volunteer. Those of us out there are people who lead groups. So we can talk to you about why we think they're valuable. So thanks for letting me chat at you for a minute. I hope you do not let this fall go by, because in 2 weeks, all the groups kick off, and I don't want you to miss trying something this fall. So Susan, I know you have to share some things, but can you tell them, I know you are involved in groups and probably have been for your whole adult life.
Yep.
And why would you encourage people to take that step this fall?
Well, I mean, I think any of you who have been in a group, you know that those are the people who come around you in those valleys and celebrate with you in those mountaintops. But if you don't have it on your calendar, it's always something you mean to do. And we always think we're too busy, and we always think maybe it's for somebody else. But really, I cannot encourage you enough to step into a group this fall. It is an opportunity to meet new people, to keep your journey with Jesus sharp and fresh, and to learn together. And I just can't say enough about it, Charlotte. So hopefully they're going to step outside and do that.
All right. I'll
Sign
see you
up.
in the lobby, or
All
I'll
right.
see your text on my phone. I will take tomorrow off from texting because I'm going to be with my family. But after that, I'll respond to any questions you guys have. So, all right.
Thank you, Charlotte. All right, you know, just please stop outside. We're going to have the booths out there for a couple weeks. Also, and when it comes to care ministries, I was just talking to someone about this. And the bottom line about our care ministries is that we all need them. How many of you have suffered from grief? You don't have to put your hand up. How many of you have suffered from loss? How many of you are suffering from anxiety, apathy, anger, marriage issues, divorce? It's all of us. We're all in this together, and we have a group, our care team, on Tuesday night meets here, and there's all kinds of people that are walking through the same journeys as you. So please consider stepping into any of the number of things we offer, because it's going to make your life richer, and it's going to give you more opportunity to connect. So we take it seriously here. I want to celebrate a couple quick things. If you were here last weekend and had an opportunity to participate in our annual vote, I wanted to let you know that it passed astoundingly well. So the budget was confirmed by 95%, and then the elders were confirmed by 93%. And we just want to thank you so much for being a part of the journey here, part of the mission of this church. Without you, we couldn't do it. So thank you for being a part of that. we're pretty excited here. We've got a great speaker today. His name's Ryan Morrill. He's sitting over here. He's going to walk you through Psalm 23. I think you're going to love that so much. But fall is a time where we're launching. So students are launching. Ella, I see you here. Ella's an Edge. She also leads worship for Edge. You see her up here on the stage. You guys, if you have some kids that are in middle school or high school, bring them on in for Edge and Breakaway. It's an incredible program that we are just really trying to figure out how to get the kids in. We want them in. All right, lastly, we have a new series coming up starting next week. It's Questions Jesus Asked. Do you know that he asked over 300 questions in his time on earth? So we're going to hear about the questions that he asks, and we're going to also feel the freedom to ask questions as well. So we're going to take a look at a trailer. You guys enjoy. We're going to get started.
Jesus asked people many questions about what they believe, what they longed for, and how they saw the world. It was Jesus who would ask most of the questions of others, and there were a small handful of ones that he would answer. Even when asked, Jesus would answer back with more questions for consideration. So we're going to look at 3 questions that Jesus asked over 2,000 years ago. So I have a question for you. Could these questions be relevant to our lives today?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. As Susan said, my name is Ryan, and part of our Orion staff family here, and excited to be with you on this Labor Day weekend. Today, we conclude this journey through Psalm 23, and it's actually was supposed to be a 3-week series. We turned it into a 2-week series because actually 2 weeks ago, which would have been week 1, we did a big baptism celebration in this place. And so last weekend, Sam Anderson did a great job of combining the first 2 messages. And the first part of Psalm 23 is just such a beautiful vision of a shepherd leading us and caring for us and guiding us into green pastures and still waters, just this restoring of our soul. Those words may sound familiar to you. And then he went on to the second part where the passage begins to comfort us, knowing that we have an incredible creator with us, even when we go through the hardest and most difficult of times, as it talks about walking through the darkest valleys, or the valley of the shadow of death, or when our enemies are pursuing us as well. We know we have someone there to comfort us and anoint us. And so today we get to the end in verse 6. And this passage is about faithfulness. And it says this, it says, surely your goodness and mercy or love will follow me all the days of my life, all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So I look forward to just sharing what I've learned through this passage this week, this entire, all 6 verses. It's so poetic and so beautiful, but there's such depth and beauty to it that is easily missed. And so I'm really excited to share that with you today. Before that, though, we're going to actually hear this entire verse read out loud to us as we prepare our hearts. And then we're going to actually hear a song titled Psalm 23, written actually by one of our worship leaders, Tatiana, at our Birmingham campus. So take this in, soak this in over the next few minutes, and then I'll be back up.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me into paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Would you all join me in worshiping Jesus today and stand up? God, you are my shepherd. You lead me to waters so my thirsty soul can drink, and I am satisfied.
Thank you so much. Beautiful preparation for us there. Before I begin, I want to do something for Forget About It. I want to just say thank you to those of you that have been in the journey with us, that have supported so much of what happens here in this building, outside of this building, throughout the whole world, locally as well, with so many different partnerships. We actually had a convocation this last week in this building for the Pontiac teachers, which is just so great, and for the Lake Orion School teachers as well. And so just to those of you that give, thank you, because you're impacting so much in this community. You're also impacting places in countries and in villages and individuals across the world whom you will likely never meet, but you can know that through your support, seeds are being planted and the love of Christ is being shown and also rooted into their hearts as well. So if you came prepared to give today, we have boxes at the back of the auditorium. You can continue to give online if that's how you do it. And thank you so much to those of you that watch online as well and give that way. We're so glad you're with us today. So speaking of forgetting, I want to say this, that it is something that we all do so easily, isn't it? We forget so much in life. We forget birthdays. We forget to pay certain bills. We forget to respond to emails, right? We forget some big events. Maybe even some of us have forgotten that there's an anniversary that's out there. Hopefully that hasn't happened to you too often, but forgetting is just part of the nature of being a human being. In the hustle and bustle of our busy lives, we tend to get so focused on the here and now that we fail to remember so much. And one of the things that happens too is we fail to remember a lot of things that have happened in the past, especially the good things that have happened in the past. We're such a forward-thinking just culture that we always want to think about the future. There's always so much talk about the future, and I feel like there's less and less talk about what took place in the past. And yet, God does not have the past take place. He does not have events take place in this world to suddenly say in 2 days or 1 year or 50 years, those events don't matter anymore. Some of those events do need to be forgotten. There's many of you in this room, I'm sure, that have had pain or bad things happen, and even Scripture tells us to put that behind us and focus on what is ahead. But when God does something, when there is a blessing, when he proves faithful in our life, when there is a miracle, so to speak, from God, those are things we want to remember. Yet, we so easily can forget them. I like to call myself sort of an amateur historian, nothing great there. Studied history in college, and my shelves are just filled with history books. I collect biographies on presidents, and I'm always reading history. I'm reading about Watergate right now. I don't know why I'm reading about Watergate. I am related to Richard Nixon, long distant thing there, but we won't go into that too much today. But one of the things that I've gathered about historians is this. It's that historians have this ability to rise above the fray of today and go back to the events of a certain time or a certain person in time and gather info and offer perspective about that moment or about that person and what shaped them or what shaped that specific instance in history. And this is also what historians are able to do. They're able to diagnose the long-term impact that that moment or that person had on the future. Winston Churchill said this, and I love this quote. It's one just because, again, of my love for history. He says, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." Yet how many people dislike history? Be honest in this room. Many of you, yes, I'm sure, right? Yet there is something to be learned from what comes from it. Now, for the purposes of today, I would tweak a little bit of what Churchill said, just for this room, those that are watching right now. I would say this: those that fail to remember their past and the blessings of the past are doomed to forget the great things that God has done and will do. Again, we're such a forward-thinking world, which is great. I think more and more the value is the past, as I said, doesn't matter. What matters is the future. Great, I get it. Yet, for so many of us in this room and that are watching, the fact that you are here today, the fact that you're in this room, you're checking this out, is a testimony to something amazing that God has done in your life. I'm sure each of us has many tales to tell of near-death experiences, heartbreak that sent us spiraling, poor choices that nearly ended life and relationships as we know it. But yet God, in his infinite strategy and plan, has intervened. He has rescued us or is rescuing us. He spared us or is sparing us. He has saved us. And he's chosen you and he's chosen me to continue to live and fulfill some sort of calling. Some of those callings are huge that the whole world will know about or thousands of people might know about. And some of those callings maybe only one other person will know about. They're all important. And he has also called you to be here today and to hear this today. Why is that? Well, the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he says this, "But by the grace of God, I am what I am." Or in Popeye speak, I am what I am, right? By the grace of God, I am what I am. Meaning, despite myself, despite my poor decisions, despite my failings, despite my weaknesses, despite all of the issues that I have in my life, God has me here. I am who I am for a purpose. And there's something that he's doing with you in life right now. And yet, even in my failure to remember the past, which I fail to do it as well, I also struggle to remember how God has led me through challenges and let the tyranny of today overrule the blessings of my past. Speaking of past, 10 days ago, we dropped our oldest son, 18 years old, off to college. Northern Michigan University in Marquette, 7.5, 8 hours away. 2 different peninsulas with a very long, scary bridge in between it that we have to drive over, and often closes, I guess, in the winter, which that'll prove interesting later on. So we dropped him off, and I've been preparing for this moment all summer. Everybody's asking me, are you gonna get sad? Are you getting, and I'm like, I'm excited for him. I really am excited for him because I knew what God did with me in those years as I went to college as well. And I'm so optimistic, and he's doing great. He's having a great time the last 10 days, maybe a little too much fun, but that's a whole nother thing too. And he's studying, which is great. And so that said, the night we're dropping him off, we drove up on Wednesday, stayed at a hotel in Marquette, and that night I had this freak out moment because I realized how much this kid does not know, okay? I realized there is so much in life he is not aware of. And I realized there's so much wisdom that I have yet to be able to give to him, that he really needs to hear from me. And so I went out and I sat down in the lobby and I took a piece of paper just like this and I folded it kind of like in book form. And I just started writing kind of like a letter. I put a verse on the very front of it, just a verse that's been speaking to me. It's from Numbers 6 lately. It's called The Blessing. I encourage you to look that up. It is fantastic. And I put that on there and then I just came up with these points. And I got to 20 points really quick. I think there could have been 50, but I decided that I wanted him to read this. So stayed at 20. And they were all sorts of things from just spiritual perspective to my love for him as my son and just common sense stuff like make your bed. That was just one. Make your bed. It sets up your whole day, right? Another one was, as so many young people look at social media, and I said, don't look at and miss what other people are doing. Like, don't look at what they're doing and think you're missing out on something because that's something that seems to just work into life every once in a while. I said, and this is a line, I thought this was a really good line. I said, the only life you're missing is what's before you right now. That's what you're missing if you aren't paying attention to it, right? And then another one was, and this is true for him because he's a big adventurous kid, he's outdoors, hikes, does all sorts of stuff. I said, don't do anything stupid, right? Because you can and likely will get hurt from it. And so I gave that to him and I don't know what he's gonna do with it. I'm sure it'll pop up at some point. But the crazy thing is now that when we get back home the next day, the reality sets in. And my heart starts to grieve that my son's gone. But because of technology and the fact that I'm paying his cell phone bill, I get access to him, right? I know where he is because, as all parents do of their teens, they can track their teens, right? You track your teen, right? Yep, you do. You know, Valerie, thank you. And yes, it's a little stalkerish and a little creepy-ish, but I love him, right? And I want to stay connected to him. So I can go on and I can see where he is. I can see what he's doing. I'm like, He's in his room. Oh, that's great. And oh, he's in the dining hall. Now he's back in his room again. Why is he in his room so long? You know, these are not things back in the 90s that we as parents, that our parents did to us, right? And I come to the firm conclusion that there are many things that parents do not need to know about college. This is true, right? But I'm still kind of voyeuristic and I want to see what's going on with his life. And so I start to see what he's doing. And one day he's out on a hike, and the next thing you know, if you've been to Marquette, there's these things called the Black Rocks, and all the kids go and jump off into Lake Superior. And soon enough, I noticed that the dot is about 100 yards offshore in Lake Superior, right? And this is a big no-no. This is one of those conversations we did have. This is what the dean of students said: do not go swimming too far out in Lake Superior. It is a dangerous place. And I just realized I am worrying about this boy. I am worrying. So many of us parents worry about our kids. And yet the question occurred to me, how am I trusting God with this man? How am I remembering the goodness and faithfulness of God in my life when I was in the same place he is now? How am I remembering how God has led me and him as my child, me as his parent, him as my child, through the last 18 years. And I've seen God faithfully show up time and time again. It hasn't been squeaky clean easy. There's been really challenging and heartbreaking times. But God has continued to prove faithful every single time. And yet I forget. I continually forget. So many of us in this room, we forget because of the tyranny of now. And what I'm comforted by is when I open up the scriptures, and if you read in the Gospels and the journey of Jesus with his disciples over the course of 3 years, you see too that the guys who are literally right next to Jesus also struggle to remember the miracles that Jesus has done right in front of their eyes as well. One of those examples comes to us in the middle of Matthew. Chapter 14, 15, and 16. In Matthew 16, the disciples are getting on a boat to go out across the Sea of Galilee, and they have a little issue that pops up for them. Now, little preface before that, what just took place in Matthew 15 was a crazy, wonderful miracle. Many of us in this room have probably heard about this miracle. Crowds and crowds, over 4,000, supposedly just 4,000 men. But you can probably double that number because there were women and children there as well. So probably 8,000 people were gathered around to receive healing from Jesus. That's what it said, that the crowds were gathering. There were miracles and healings that were taking place. And soon enough, people wanted to start going away from Jesus because they were hungry, right? We always need food. It kind of drives so much. And so Jesus, not wanting them to go, says, let's get some food. Let's figure out this problem. And so soon enough, I think in Matthew 15, there are 7 loaves of bread and a few fish, it says, that get brought. And they break it all up and they serve it out to all of these people, these thousands and thousands of people. And if you've read the story before, you know that it was a miracle because everyone was filled from those 7 loaves and those few fish, and basketfuls of food came back as a result of it. So that took place literally the day before this event that's about to take place in the Sea of Galilee. And just a few days before that, we read in Matthew 14 how there were 5,000 people gathered around, same exact thing, healing's taking place, everybody's getting hungry, and 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish get brought. And same exact thing happens again. Breaks it all up, everybody eats, and basketfuls and basketfuls of food come back. So this miracle of lunch just took place 2 times in a row. And here is what we read about the disciples out on the boat in chapter 5, Matthew 16. It says this: when they went across the lake, the disciples forgot to take bread. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it? They've had 2 days before, the 2 events, the big events before, all had to do with not having enough food. You think somebody would take a little note and say, okay, we need to bring food. We need to make sure lunch is there. And you can hear it starting to kind of build inside of them, like, oh my goodness. But then Jesus, in his way, Susan talked about this, asks questions, says things that we don't always understand, says this: be careful, right? Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They discussed this among themselves and said, is it because we didn't bring any bread? Is he upset with us because we forgot lunch? Right? Who forgot lunch? Like they could see them starting to argue. Like, Peter, that was your job. No, John, you said you had the basket. And they're starting to quarrel amongst themselves. And aware of their discussion, Jesus asked this: you have little faith. Why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? That's the key phrase. Do you still not understand? Don't you remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many basketfuls were gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many basketfuls you gathered there? And Jesus asked them that question. Do you still not understand? And he takes them back, gives them the pop quiz, right? How many did we feed? How much food, right? How much was left over? Do you remember now? And they're like, yes, oh yeah, that's right. And it just happened a day before. And this is what David is getting at as he concludes Psalm 23. He takes us down a trip down memory lane. And in doing so, he shows us and we receive the faithfulness of God. And then he looks confidently in the future where ultimately we and he are going. Psalm 23:6 is about this. It's about 2 things. First of all, it's about taking a look in the rearview mirror. And I got this rearview mirror right here. Actually came from the collision shop next door. People were like, well, just take it off your car. I'm like, I don't think it comes off that easily. So we got this from the collision shop next door. Thank you, Kim, so much for getting that. And so much of what we have to do is take a look in the rearview mirror, which again, does not come easily in our life. We've been trained in many ways to maybe not look at our life in the rearview mirror. But there's a lot of good things that have happened in the past. And then also to see past it at the road that is ahead of us as well. And to realize that the driver, since we have a rearview mirror, that the driver of the car, the driver of the truck or the SUV is not you. And it's not me. It's God. And that we can be confident that God as the driver has taken us to this point, whatever miles are behind us, he's done a great job as the driver getting us to this point. And since he's done such a good job with the past, we can be confident that he's going to continue to drive us well into the future. Yet so often we treat God, or in our own hearts, we see God kind of like that parent who has a student driver right next to them, right? Slow down. How did you miss that, right? Oh, you shouldn't be driving like this. Pay attention, put your phone down. You know, there's so many things that happen in that moment, but we have the greatest, most authority in that driver's seat, the creator of the universe who's driving us forward into the future and has done an incredible job with the creation of the world, the sun, moon, and stars in the past as well. So our first point is this, right? Remember to look in the rear view mirror. The verse says that surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Not just the days of my life that are ahead of me, but all the days of my life. From the beginning all the way to the end. And as I've reflected on this in my life, I've come to see that often, just like a parent as with a student driver, when there's tension or there's worry or there's pain or there's difficulty or there's doubt, I wonder if God is present. I wonder if whoever's driving really has this under control. And my desire is to take control. My desire is to do what I think is best. But in time, on the other side of those challenges, and before the next ones come, I can see differently. I can see that he was there, that his goodness was there, that his mercy was there, that my shepherd continued to guide me. And if you look back at your lives, as I look back at my life, I can see these moments where God has shown up in my life. As a teenager with the angst of what my future, I just saw it happening with my son, and the angst and concern about my future and who am I gonna be and what am I gonna stand for and how am I gonna live my life. I could see those, and yet I saw the faithfulness of God continue to show up time and time again. And in college, even in just the strategic moments, we all have crazy just moments. Sometimes it's just we bump into the right person at the right time. And God uses that moment in crazy ways. And I think of the people that I bumped into and the things, just that one church that I went to, that one meeting I went to, that changed so much of my life and pointed me in a direction that I'm going now. I can see it in my career. I can see it in my marriage. I see how God has been faithful as he's challenged me to work through issues that exist within myself, in my own marriage, because I didn't come in with a clean bag of goods. Nobody does. Same thing for my wife as well. And I've seen how he continues to be faithful in that, and also in the raising of our children, whether they're little. And for those of you that are empty nesters, you still worry about your kids as they get older, don't we? We still get concerned about that. And we can see how God has been faithful, even through the valleys And there's always going to be valleys. I'm not dismissing to say it's always going to be easy, no. But God continues to drive, even in those moments where it is so very hard. Remembering is so important, and that is why God had the Israelites do this as well. And as we open the Old Testament, we see moments and many times where the whole process is for the tribe of Israel to remember what God has done. One of those takes place as God led the Israelites across the Jordan into the Promised Land on dry ground. And this is what he told them in Joshua chapter 4. It says this: "Go over before the ark of the Lord, your God, in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And when it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." So these pile of stones is a signifier. It's something for them to see, to remember, to recall, because even those that experienced it firsthand are going to forget, and the stories are going to fail to be passed along from generation to generation to generation. And so God so desperately wanted them to remember. Now, also David, the writer of this psalm, he was also building this resume, this memory muscle, so to speak, even as he's writing this passage. One of the things that happened to David is he was anointed to be the next king, but he was a very young child. He was so young and so small and just not really strong that people could easily overlook him. And there was this moment where the great battle is going to take place, and there's this giant, right? Goliath. And yet David steps up and says, "I will fight the Philistine." And everyone scoffed at him because he looked so small. But listen to David's response in 1 Samuel. It says, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine." He had this memory bank that he could pull from. David looked back. He was looking in the rearview mirror. And this is what Jesus did in the boat with the disciples. Holds up the rearview mirror, says, "Don't forget what has taken place." And it's important for us to do the same as well, to build up a resume of what God has done in our life. And I hope at some point, whether it's even here this morning, maybe it's later today, maybe you write it down, maybe you just think about it and dwell upon it. But where has God shown up in your life? And think about all the years. If you're younger, it could be now. It could be just a few years ago. For those of us that have been around for several decades, we can look all through. And I know there are moments where God has stepped in for you, where God has rescued you, where God has shown you something, where he's been faithful, where he steered your course in a different direction. Because that is what he does. And the simple fact that you are here, that you are watching, you are listening today, means God is steering in some way in your life. How are you building your memory muscle with the faithfulness of God? For me, I have a pretty decent memory. I do. And I can recall certain moments in time where God's faithfulness has shown up. Still remember early December 1990, a moment, an encounter I had with God in a field as I'm questioning so many things about my life, about him, about the direction I'm going. And his faithfulness was shown to me at that exact moment in time. And I've held on to that. It's been one of those kind of resume builders for me. I have it on my faithfulness resume for God, right? Another one, February 1995. I was working with young students at that point, and it was just this crystal clear moment where I realized what I was supposed to do with my life. I've been working with next generation, with teens and with children for my entire career, 30 years now, right? going all the way back to the beginning of college as well. And it was in that moment, as I'm in college, where I'm like, I get it. I know what I'm supposed to do. And it goes on this faithful moment for me that God is always leading, always guiding me. Another one happened right down here on the floor in that chair, down by those chairs, just a month ago. August 3rd, it was our midweek. We had a panel up here. It was a Rock Your Family night, and all the pastors and their wives were up here, and I got to interview them. And I got to ask them questions about the successes and challenges they have as parents. It was a wonderful night. And it was so good. We got done, and I walked down there, and I was just sitting there. We were worshiping, and the song was The Blessing. You ever hear The Blessing? If you're a parent, go home, Google, listen, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. Listen to The Blessing by Elevation Worship. And I'm listening, and it is just pouring over me. I am getting wrecked in this moment by this song. And all of a sudden, and this happens so often, doesn't it? My phone kind of chimed, and it was someone in my family. And there's this tension issue that is brewing in our family, and it's not going away. And it was right there in that moment. It was right there, and it was coming to a head. And I was so upset in the moment. I'm like, golly, I'm gonna have to deal with this. This is not good. What's gonna happen? How is this gonna go? And yet the song just kept going. And there's a moment at the end of the song where it says, He is for you. He is for you. He is for you. He is for you. Generation after generation, He is for you. He is for my wife. He is for my kids. He is for my family. And it was just clarity, like, God has my family. We are going to navigate this somehow, some way, but God has this moment. It's on my spiritual resume. It's on my faithfulness resume with God. He has been my shepherd always. I hope that you can find ways to remember, to recall God's faithfulness, and to draw on your own story, especially when things are difficult. Now, the second thing that we are to do is to remember to look ahead. Because you can't just look in the rearview mirror. That's not a safe thing to do when you're driving. You have to keep your eyes on the road that is ahead of you. And David knew where the story of his life was going. He knew the end game, which was the beginning of forever. He knew the outcome, that things are heading for something much greater, that there is an eternity, a more beautiful forever than anyone could possibly imagine. And that perspective shapes his here and now. When I was growing up in Denver, Colorado, there was this universal thing that everybody cheered for in Denver, and that is the Denver Broncos. And yes, it's a football illustration, but I and everyone loved the Denver Broncos and followed them as a kid, and they got a good quarterback in the 80s, and in 1987, January 11th, those of you that are football fans, it was the AFC Championship. And the Denver Broncos were playing the Cleveland Browns in Municipal Stadium. Brad and I the drummer, were just talking about this moment. And they were playing them, and the Broncos were down in the fourth quarter, and the Broncos got the ball back on their own 2-yard line with 1 minute and 58 seconds left. And John Elway, the quarterback, kind of dissected the defense and surgically moved that ball down the field with just a few seconds left, throws to Mark Jackson, touchdown, extra point, gets kicked, and in overtime, we end up kicking a field goal. We go to the Super Bowl. The whole town is going crazy. The whole neighborhood is crazy. My house is going crazy, and you know what? I missed it. I wasn't there because I was so anxious and so nervous. I would go outside of the house and pace in the road. I would pace around the neighborhood because I couldn't watch the game. I was so worried that we were going to lose. And the only feedback I had is you could hear the shouts coming from every house in the neighborhood. That's what happened. It doesn't happen much in Detroit these days, right? But you could hear the shouts, and you could feel the roofs come off when we scored that touchdown. It was an amazing, amazing moment. And yet so many of us in life pace and worry and fret and miss the life that is in front of us because we are scared of loss. And in that fear, we miss the joy and the promises that God has for us today and tomorrow. I marvel and celebrate when people who have a cancer diagnosis or a really bad disease diagnosis are able to look it in the face and say, let's go. I marvel at that. I don't know how I would do with that. But I love it when they say, let's go. And I love it when they continue to live their life. It is so inspiring to me. I just watched my mom navigate breast cancer. And yes, there was fear. Yes, there was worry. Yes, there were tough days. But she continued to march, and I respect that. I love that so much when people can trust, you know what, I'm gonna continue because I don't wanna miss the life that is in front of me right now. The Apostle Paul says it so well in 2 Corinthians. He says this, therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. I want to close just with a reminder of the promise of Jesus, because the verse closes, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's almost like this picture that, again, we're connecting so much of what happened in the old scriptures to the life of Jesus as well. And this is what Jesus said in the book of John, right? As we're talking about promises and we're talking about future, it says this. Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. And if that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? Basically saying, do you think I lied to you? Do I look like a liar? Do I look like someone who has not been telling the truth? And he says, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. The cure for a troubled heart is found in resting in the promise of Jesus. Do you, do I believe in the promise of Jesus? Does this perspective shape your reality? Doesn't mean that life isn't hard. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. But it frames it in the context that there is something greater in store for us. Life is a battle. It can be so hard. I remember Steve Andrews, who married my wife and I 23 and a half years ago. He stood there, and I couldn't fathom what he was talking about at the time, but he said, there will be days where the two of you are holding on by your fingernails in your marriage. And anyone who's been married for a few weeks or a few months knows what I'm talking about, where you just feel like you are so close to letting this go. And there are days where there's just such hardship and battles in all of life, marriage, children, job, health, world, you name it. And we feel like we are holding on by our fingernails. But we hold on to the promise. We hold on to the fact that there is victory that has already been received for us. I love going back and watching the videotape of that game that day. I love it now, right? It's wonderful. We win. It's awesome every time. And when I open the scriptures, I realize we win every time. There is no need to fear. There is no need to grow disheartened. There is no need to fret and worry and have anxiety, though those things can so easily creep in. But again, we have a promise of something better, of an eternity with Jesus Christ. And I hope today each of us in this room can rest on that promise, looking forward to that, knowing that he's been faithful all along. As I close, I want to do something for us. I want to go back through this passage together. And I'm going to ask us to actually recite this together, because when we speak it out loud, I heard this years ago, it's amazing how many more millions of cells are engaged and neurons are engaged in our brain when we actually say it. So I'm going to ask you right now if you'd be willing to stand up with me and let's read Psalm 23 together. It says this, say it with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. We're going to close with a song that says yesterday. It's called Yesterday, Today, and Forever. He loves you. He believes in you. He has you. And he will take care of you.
Lift your head, lift your eyes, look to the sun. In the test, in the trial, His grace is enough. His grace is enough. Oh, my soul, remember who you're singing to. Take heart, hold on. Remember who you're singing to. He's still the Lord Almighty. He's still the King of Kings. He's still the risen Savior, reigning over everything. His name is still the highest. His strength will never fail. His word is everlasting, yesterday, today, and forever. Keep the faith, fan the flame. Don't give up the fight. In the night, speak His name. His hope is alive. Our hope is alive. Oh, my soul, remember who you're singing to. Take heart, hold on. Come on. Remember who you're singing to. He's still the Lord Almighty. He's still the King of Kings. He's still the risen Savior, reigning over everything. His name is still the highest. His word will never fail. His word is everlasting, yesterday, today, and forever. Oh, yesterday, today, and forever. There's one name we can count on. There's one name we can trust on. Church, sing His name with me this morning. Jesus, Jesus, the one I can count on, the one thing I'm sure of. Jesus, Jesus, the rock that I stand on. I stake my life on. Jesus, still consumes me, still chasing after me. Let's sing these words together. My heart and my soul. My heart and my soul, I give you control. Consume me from the inside out. Oh. Let justice and praise become my embrace. To love you from the inside. My heart and my soul, I give you control. Consume me from the inside out. Oh, let justice and grace become my embrace. To love you from the inside out. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, worship team. That was beautiful. Thank you for that moment. Ryan, thank you for the good word today. It was fabulous, and we loved it. All right, before we say goodbye, a couple things to remind you of. We have groups out in the lobby. How many of you could use a good group? How many of you could go for a good course? How about some care? Go check it out. We're going to have it for the next couple weeks. Definitely take the time to look and see what's out there this week. Next week, we start that new series, Questions Jesus Asked. And we also have a prayer team that's going to come up front. So please, if you're in need of prayer, come see us. We'd love to pray with you. Outside of that, we would love for you to go and enjoy this beautiful day, rest tomorrow, and we will see you next week, all right? See you.